If I were to ask you to name 20 species off the top of your head, you'd probably name mostly animals, and there's a good reason for that. They are the most diverse group on Earth. Of all the 6 groups that we will talk about, animals account for about 2/3 of the known species. Now, scientists tell us there's a lot more species out there that we don't know, most of the little stuff like bacteria, but of the ones we do, animals really take the cake. About 75% of animals, though, are like this little guy. Little bugs, crabs, millipedes, things with an exoskeleton and jointed legs. So they're not like us. Although they might have a nervous system and 2 little eyes staring back at you, so they kind of feel familiar in a way, they still don't stay warm on a cold day. They don't even have a backbone, much less a skeleton. So most animals are really different than us. Only a small slice, about 4%, have a backbone, and most of those are fish. So when we picture something with fur or feathers, I think that's the animal kingdom. Really, there's a lot more to it than that. Let's explore a little bit. So in terms of our classification scheme, we're talking about these guys here. Let's start with where we find animals. Really just about everywhere on Earth. Land, sea, sky, underground, you name it, they're there. Bacteria probably win out in terms of a greater diversity of habitats, but animals are pretty impressive and adaptable. When it comes to what animals look like, they're pretty good size. All animals are made up of mini cells. They're multicellular. Now, not all of them can be seen with the naked eye. Some actually still need a microscope, but they're all multicellular. Most of them with organs and systems and tissues, with really few exceptions. One of the odd things about the animal kingdom is none of the cells have cell walls. Now, animals stand up and protect themselves with a skeleton, whether that's an external or an internal one like we have, but our cells themselves don't have a cell wall, so they kind of have a rounder appearance most of the time. And we're kind of squishy and soft, other than the hard parts like the skeleton. So that's an interesting feature that sets animals apart. Well, let's take a quick peek of the 1.5 million species of animals, shall we? Even if we went through an animal every single second, you'd be sitting there for 2.5 weeks straight. So let's just take a broad overview of these 9 major groups, which isn't even all of them. Well, a sponge on your kitchen counter is probably made of plastic. There are actual sea sponges that create movement with these flagella as they filter out plankton from the water. Kind of strange animals. And there are cnidarians, also ocean dwellers like corals and sea anemones. Flatworms, many of which live in the sea, but some, like this nasty looking flatworm, also another view of it here, can get in our intestines and cause problems for people. There are mollusks like snails and clams. Segmented worms like you find in your backyard, as well as leeches and feather duster worms. Roundworms, another one that can cause potential problems in both humans and pets. If you've ever dewormed your dog or horse or something, then it's probably these guys that you're after. The biggest group by far is the arthropods. Mostly insects, but also some sea-dwelling creatures like these crabs. And probably one of the most dangerous animals on Earth is this guy, mosquito, mainly because it spreads diseases. More sea-dwelling creatures like the sea stars and sea urchins, sea cucumbers. And then there's our group, things with a backbone. And this is a pretty small group, but even just this quick look here shows you how incredibly far-ranging they are, from things with fins that live in the ocean to those with feathers that fly through the air. When it comes to animal reproduction, most of this is sexual reproduction. You have to have mates go through a typical life cycle. You're probably pretty familiar with the life cycle by now. You've seen it before. There are a few exceptions. There are a few animals that could be cut in half and regrow all their parts, but that's more the exception than the rule, at least in most cases. And most animals have really dedicated themselves to sexual reproduction. Now, plants reproduce sexually, but they have both male and female parts in the same flower and can often pollinate themselves. But animals have taken it to the next degree and separated genders in most cases where they have to reproduce sexually. So of all the groups out there, animals tend to depend on sexual reproduction. They've kind of, I guess, as a kingdom decided this is so important to have the variation that we're going to make sure that happens every time. When it comes to getting energy, animals eat. Because they're pretty big, they can. And although their diets vary widely from all plants to all other animals, animals eat. They have a mouth, usually a digestive system, not in all cases, but the vast majority, and they consume that food, break it down, and use it to power all the life processes. And animals need a lot of energy, especially those of us that are warm-blooded to help us stay warm. But all animals move. More than any other kingdom, they move. And you won't find other groups of organisms with such a diversity of their ability to swim and fly and crawl and run and jump and all the other things that animals do. And that requires a lot of energy. The animal kingdom, well, definitely more than just birds and bunnies. Most of them, as we said, were bugs. In terms of their impact on our lives, it is pretty significant. You know, from the daily, just our pets comforting us and keeping us company, to work animals that do jobs for us, to animals that are livestock that provide us with food, and an especially important source of high protein food. Animals have a big impact. Although one of the biggest impacts, some of these guys, a mosquito, for example, carries a lot of diseases to and from. So in terms of the impact on human health, we might fear bees and bears quite a bit because of their ability to inflict pain. But to cause disease, mosquitoes are probably one of the more dangerous, deadly animals on Earth. Look out for those guys. Well, I hope even this short presentation has helped you to appreciate the diversity of animals out there. Whether it's land, air, or sea, there are so many different types of animals to appreciate, each with their own interesting life. That's it for this time. Until next time, keep appreciating life.